Hello and welcome back to another week of Open Mic Night. So glad that you guys decided to join us. Tonight we are playing catch up. We're playing catch up on all of the latest Apple news that has been going on that we have yet to cover here on Open Mic Night. So stick around. It's going to be a pretty good time. All right, so like I said, welcome back to Open Mic Night. If this is your first time joining, welcome to Open Mic Night. My name is Mike Weger, and I am your host. Here on Open Mic Night, we cover all of the latest Apple news. We give you tips and tricks to make your Apple devices work for you. We are streaming live from a beautiful Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, maybe not beautiful, but it's still decent weather. It's starting to become springtime, which is always good. So it's a good time here in Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome to all of the new listeners out there, and welcome back to people who have listened in the past. I want to give a big thank you to WLMNradio.com. Roger and everyone over there is fantastic. I stream live over on WLMN, and there's also a radio station in Grafton, West Virginia. So welcome to anyone from Grafton. If you are from Grafton, if you're listening from WLMN Radio, let me know. Send me an email, mike@wegertech.com, and I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, and it'll be fun to hear from you. If you guys want to call in live at any time during the show, and if you guys aren't watching live, we stream live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific over at omnpodcast.com/live. You can head over there every Tuesday night. That's when I stream live. And the nice part about that is that you guys can hop in the chat, and you guys can also call in to the show. And that phone number is 402-915-0790. Again, 402-915-0790. So call in live, interrupt me if you have any questions, comments. All I ask is that you guys keep it family friendly, but I know that you guys will. So tonight, like I said, we are going to be covering a lot of Apple news. Apple has had a lot of updates in the past few weeks, a lot of really important things that matter to a lot of us everyday consumers, and so that is what I want to cover with you guys. But first, very quick, I want to just put one more little plug in there for the survey. So last week I said that I'm just doing a basic survey, just a 2-minute survey, if that. Might even take you 30 seconds to fill out the survey. You guys are kind of helping me craft the future of Open Mic Night. I just want to get your guys' feedback, see what you guys think. I'm considering some other options of things to do with the show, and so I'm just kind of gathering some information from you guys. So if you guys could help me out, that would be absolutely fantastic. Again, it takes 20 seconds. And so just pause the show. Go ahead, pause the show. Go in the show notes, or if you're listening live, I'll give you the link in a second. But pause the show, go in the show notes, or on the bottom if you're watching on YouTube, however you're doing it, and click on the link. It's omnpodcast.com, so the regular website, /survey. omnpodcast.com/survey. Again, 30-second survey. It would just really help me out if you guys could take that, because I'm thinking about making some changes to the show. Another announcement is that the show is now on iHeart Radio, which is exciting. It's been something that's been in the approval process. I did not know that the approval process for iHeart Radio would take like 3 months, if not 4. I can't remember when I signed up to be a part of iHeartRadio. Again, if you guys don't know, that's all done through Spreaker. So if you guys have a podcast out there that you're trying to get on iHeartRadio, you have to be on Spreaker, and there's some requirements that they usually give you, but and it does take a while, so be ready to wait for months in order to be approved. But it is on iHeartRadio, so you guys can listen there. Welcome to anyone listening through iHeartRadio. I'm glad you guys are joining us. So those are just kind of the two major announcements that I wanted to put out there for you guys. Just some basic housekeeping before we get down to the actual news. I want to thank everyone for being in the chat room tonight. Again, if you guys want to watch live, omnpodcast.com/live. Again, you can throw all your questions, comments, whatever I'm talking about in the chat room or call in live. Oh, okay. I completely lied to you guys. One fun announcement is that it's still in the works. It's still in the negotiations phase. And I say negotiations like it's a big fancy thing. It's really just us having a conversation. But we are more than likely going to have a new part to full-time co-host. And it's, you guys all know him, Colin Ball. He's been on the show a few times. Maybe you guys haven't caught the episodes that he has been on, but a very good friend of mine. into the tech news sphere. He does kind of SEO, marketing, writing for his job. So he'll be a very valuable asset to have on Open Mic Night. I have a very good response when I have him on. People say they really like him, and I like him too. He's a good friend of mine. So he is going to be coming on. Now, I don't want to say full-time because, there's no, obviously he's just going to come on when he can, but hopefully it's most of the time. So that is going to be a good thing. We will have two voices now. You guys will have two voices, two opinions on the show going forward on a weekly basis, which I think will be a very, very good thing. And I'm excited about that. So look forward to that. It's probably going to start later, about mid-May. I have finals coming up, so I guess one more announcement. Man, I keep lying to you guys. I just keep having a lot of announcements. My finals for law school are coming up, so there will be a show next week. There will be a show normally, but not the following Tuesday. So I don't know what the date is on that. It looks like, let's see here. If I can get my calendar open. May 5th, there will not be a show, just because next week is my finals too, but it's really a bare week for me. I only have one that week, but that following week I have one on Monday and one on Wednesday, so before and after the show, so I won't have too much time to prep, and I'll need to be studying for that final on Wednesday. So no show May 5th, but there will be a show next week, April 28th. All right, so let's just get down to the Apple news. As you guys know, the Apple Watch went on pre-sale. And so that has happened. They had the pre-sale, and wow, completely blew my mind how fast they started selling these Apple Watches. So when they went live, people thought, because it went live very early Friday morning. I think it was midnight Pacific time, which would have been, 2 a.m. where I'm at and 3 a.m. on the East Coast. So that is when ordering went live. And if you were trying to pre-order your Apple Watch, you noticed that it went fast. And people are starting to say, and this is true, this has been true for the iPhone 6 launch and now for the Apple Watch, the best way to pre-order a device from Apple is definitely to use the Apple Store app on your iOS device. So on your iPhone or your iPad, using that app, for some reason, it's a lot quicker, faster, easier to use. Everything's built in. You can use Apple Pay if you want to pay for your new device. So that is how people were getting in there quickly, easily, and ordering their devices. But there were reports that after about 8 to 10 minutes, so at 12:10 Pacific time, when these started to go live, so 10 minutes in, they were already pushing back the ship date to middle of June, if not early July. And so when it started out, the original ship date is April 24th. And so that is when ship dates are supposed to happen. That is hopefully when they happen, which is next Friday. So if you were in right at midnight and you pre-ordered your Apple Watch, they are shipping on the 24th of April. But like I said, if you just waited 10 minutes, if you were 10 minutes late, you're looking at a ship date of May, June, or even July. So a lot of people were waking up at their normal time on Friday morning thinking, I'll go pre-order myself an Apple Watch. And to their dismay, they were going to have to wait until middle of July. And from what I've heard from a lot of people, the people that did that ended up not buying the Apple Watch. And there's a few reasons behind that, and I'll talk to you guys about that right now. The reason that it shocked me that so many people pre-ordered the Apple Watch right away is pretty much because we weren't able to see it and play with it yet because it wasn't in the Apple stores. So these people are pre-ordering their watches without ever even seeing what they're actually buying. They haven't actually played with it yet, which was shocking to me especially because of the price point on these Apple Watches. You're looking at $350 minimum. That is the bare bones model of the Apple Watch. So $350, that is a lot for a watch, and especially for a watch that people had not tried on yet. Even if I had an Apple Watch kind of in the budget, I still probably would have waited. And I think it's worth the wait, maybe a month or two. But some people want it right away. I understand that, and especially with Apple, I probably would have been tempted to order right away. But for spending that much money on a watch, I think it's definitely something that you want to wait and see. So that is why those numbers shocked me when I saw that these people were ordering and they were selling out that quickly, and they were pushing the ship date back so quickly. But I guess that's just me. Maybe some people definitely wanted. When a new product comes out, the thing with Apple is they have so much clout and they're already so well respected and there's already the extreme Apple fans are going to purchase a product from Apple no matter what. Apple could probably sell them ice, they could sell them anything and probably we will all buy it, including me. I am an Apple fanboy, although I'm a little more realistic of a fanboy, or at least I like to think I am. And so that was why those numbers just simply shocked me. But so the next thing I want to talk about was the different reasons now, hearing after people pre-ordered the watch, a lot of them took to blogging, social media, and different podcasts, and they really talked about why they ordered an Apple Watch, why an Apple Watch is going to help them in their life. And a lot of the reasons surprised me because, I was just surprised that, I'm reading the chat and it says that my video is not looking good. So I don't know why the video's not coming out too fine. I'm showing good bandwidth and good bandwidth also on the YouTube side. So if you're watching the live video right now, I'm sorry if it's not coming through clear, but thank you for letting me know in the chat at least. But on my side, right now, I'm showing that it's fine, so there's not much I can do about the video quality, but hopefully the audio is coming through crystal clear. And if the video is driving you nuts, if you're watching live, you can always go down below the video on omnpodcast.com/live, and there's the Spreaker player, and you can just listen to the audio. And Spreaker's up and running. It looks like it's going just fine. So, like I was talking about with the Apple Watch, they want to go in, when they buy these watches, a lot of them have a specific reason behind buying it, which, like I said, is another surprising aspect to me, because if I was going to buy the Apple Watch right now, I have no idea what I would be using it for. I would literally be buying it just to have a wearable for the first time and to start figuring out what I'm using wearables for. But in a couple of the podcasts and a couple of the blogs I've been reading, people do have some very specific reasons on why they think an Apple Watch would work well for them. And so there were kind of 3 different aspects that I really find that people kind of said, this is why I'm buying the Apple Watch. And the first one is, I think, probably the most obvious, probably something everyone has considered as a main advantage of having a wearable, and especially the Apple Watch, and that is fitness. A lot of people really like being able to track all types of data about their fitness. When you've got the heartbeat sensor in the watch, you've got all of the accelerometers and the gyros and all that stuff that are tracking your body. The Apple Watch is really a fitness tracker, kind of like a Fitbit on steroids. It has a lot more sensors. And so a lot of the athletes that I have heard from on these podcasts are talking about why they're buying it. They're like, I get a very nice looking watch. I get a wearable that I'll actually use in my everyday life. But beyond that, it is like one of the best fitness trackers that you can buy right now because it has the most complete set of sensors. And not to say that there are not other fitness trackers out there that have this sort of data. There definitely are. A lot of companies are making fantastic fitness trackers. But when you add on the fact that it's an Apple Watch, so you get the clout of having an Apple Watch, it's kind of cool. You get their first generation watch. But it's not just a fitness tracker, and I think that's what people like about this is because a lot of the other wearables out there that are fitness trackers don't do too much else. Some of them have some basic other functionality, but the Apple Watch is kind of an all-in-one package. So you do get all the fitness capabilities, but then you get everything else as well. So people are like, well, if I'm going to spend money on this type of fitness tracker, I'll spend a little bit more and go with that Apple Watch. Now, the next segment of consumer for the Apple Watch that kind of surprised me because it was one thing that I hadn't thought about too much was the home automation world. So home automation is taking off. Think of things like turning on and off your lights, setting your security system, setting your thermostat. People now even have connected refrigerators and washing machines. The entire home is starting to be connected. And so home automation is all about controlling your home from some sort of device. Now, they did show home automation off in a lot of the presentations and keynotes for the Apple Watch. They showed off features such as opening and closing your garage door, viewing your live security cameras in your home, being able to connect to all sorts of different objects in your home from your Apple Watch. Now, when I saw that, I didn't think of it as a major feature, but that's probably because I have not dove into the home automation industry as much as I would like to. Right now, I have, zero home automation in my apartment. I have a VPN that VPNs and I can control my computer from outside my home, but that is about it. That's as advanced as I get at home. And so for me, the home automation industry is interesting and I like it. And there were a lot of people that were buying the Apple Watch specifically to be their connection to their home. And so I think that when Apple comes out with HomeKit, when they really put HomeKit into the home, which is Apple's pretty much their home automation system. And we haven't learned too much about HomeKit from Apple. There's a lot of rumors that it's going to run through the Apple TV, that the Apple TV is going to be the hub. Now, those rumors are starting to die off. We don't really know how HomeKit is going to work, but you can only imagine that the Apple Watch is going to tie into HomeKit perfectly. It's going to be a great way to control things. If you think about it, even if you don't have your phone on you, you will always have your wristwatch. So walking around your house, changing the thermostat will be as easy as looking at your wrist. When you are out and about outside your home, checking your security cameras, making sure you close the garage door, making sure you turned off the coffee pot, things like that, locking your doors, all of that from a simple look at the wrist. I never thought of it as a good thing to be on a wearable, but a lot of consumers are very excited about it. The Apple Watch gets a lot of criticism for having, when you hear about how many apps that have been applied to be on the Apple Watch. So developers all over the world are submitting their apps for their apps, their applications for their applications to be on the Apple Watch, and there are thousands of apps coming into Apple. Now, the one criticism is, imagine Instagram. Instagram probably takes the most heat. I can't imagine flicking through my Instagram stream on my wristwatch. Just not really something I would want to do. And when you think about a lot of the apps that you have on your phone, imagine how many of those you would actually want to run on your wrist. Probably not many. But things like fitness and home automation make a lot of sense to be on the wrist. So there are definitely these little sectors that I think will do very well. And I think that once the Apple Watch gets out into the wild and the everyday person has the Apple Watch, as we get a few years down the road and they've done a few iterations, they bring down the price a little bit and it becomes a more popular device, I think that these are going to be some of the top key industries for the Apple Watch and for wearables overall, for all other companies that are doing wearables as well. So the next part of the kind of major industry, and it's kind of a more broad, use of the Apple Watch, but it's controlling aspects of your life. So the example that they give when they're talking about this is being able to set up your phone on a tripod if you're recording video, or maybe even having certain devices that are built into DSLR cameras, other video cameras, and being able to hit start, stop, change the settings. And this is something that I think could be interesting. I imagine a photographer who always has their hands full, and they've got cameras slung around their shoulder, and they've got cameras on a tripod, and they've just got cameras galore everywhere, and they're trying to photograph an event. I can only imagine that if they were able to connect to those cameras, maybe view what the camera's seeing, start capturing video, change settings, all from their wrist, I think that would be amazing. You're not having to carry around a phone or a tablet. It's going to be on your wrist. So there are certain industries like the photography industry where having an Apple Watch to control aspects of your life, to control things that you are doing, sorry, I keep reading the chat and then I get thrown off. But that I think is going to be a great advantage of the Apple Watch. And I think people are going to start liking those the more and more they actually use it. So that is kind of the Apple Watch news. Pretty much we just had the pre-order. It's going to ship this coming Friday in just a few days. So we're actually only a few days away from, I'm sure someone in your office, someone in your life will have an Apple Watch. I'm excited to actually see one and play with one. I told you guys a week ago that I was definitely make a trip to the Apple store to play with it and see it, and I actually have not had time yet. Like I said, with law school finals and work and all that stuff, sometimes I just get a little too busy. So that is the Apple Watch news that I want to talk about with you guys. Apple has not released any numbers yet, which is kind of shocking. The one thing that I thought they would do is a lot of times after the first weekend of pre-orders, Apple will come out and say, we sold more Apple Watches than we sold in the entire first year when we introduced the iPad. And they'll do some sort of announcement like that, but we didn't hear any numbers from Apple. Really, right now, we're pretty much basing the popularity and the numbers on how quickly they moved from an April 24 ship date to a late in May or June or July ship date. So the numbers are kind of being speculated right now, but nothing from Apple. We probably won't see that until the end of the quarter when they do their quarterly results. And even then, they still might not release to us the exact number of how many Apple Watches they sold. So if you guys have any comments, questions, or just any general stuff you guys want to talk about the Apple Watch, or we're going to keep moving into some other Apple news. Again, remember, you guys can call in 402-915-0790. That will pipe you live into the show. And as I say that, I should probably put on my headphones so that I can hear if we have a call coming in. Just realized I didn't have my headset in. So you guys can call live into the show, interrupt me at any time if you guys want to talk about any of this. I would love to get your guys' perspective. And again, that is why I am bringing on a co-host. If you missed the beginning of the show, if you're watching live, we're bringing on a co-host to open mic night. I think that'll add a whole different dimension to the show, which I'm very excited about. All right, so we're going to move into the new MacBook that was announced, pre-ordered, and shipped. Well, I don't even know if they took pre-orders for the MacBook, but people already have them in their hands. And this new MacBook is, you just have to admit when you see it, if you ignore everything else about the computer, it is one of the most beautiful computers you will ever see. It is slim, sleek, looks nice, super light, a very, very good looking computer. Now, the other aspects of the computer are, there's a lot of pros and cons, but the one thing I think everyone can agree about with the new MacBook is that it is a very, very good looking computer. Now, as we start to look at the specifics about the computer, we start to find a lot of new things that Apple did with this computer. They have a lot of new trends that are starting in this computer, and I think we will see quickly migrated over to their other laptop lines, as well as the mobile industry, meaning their iPhone and their iPad. And I'll get to that in a second on what I think they're going to be taken to the other devices. The first big update is that there is USB-C. So USB-C is the only connector besides the headphone port that is going to be on this new computer. And so what I want to talk about is I covered a lot of the specs and everything like this right as soon as they had the announcement. So I don't want to cover too much into that, but we're starting to learn a lot more about the connector, and we're starting to get a lot more opinions from people that are actually using the new MacBook in their everyday life. And that is where I wanted to go. So a lot of the reports talking about this USB-C, remember it's the only port on the MacBook. And USB-C, it does the power as well as it pulls in any old USB, USB 2 or 3. It does display, Ethernet, which is data. It does all of that through one port, which a lot of people, when they initially announced the product, and I talked to you guys about it, people were worried about having to carry around a plethora of dongles. It was going to be dongle galore, dongle city in your bag. You're going to have to carry around all these extra wires and adapters and everything like that, and it was going to be kind of crazy. But from what I have heard from a lot of people that have the MacBook, if you use the MacBook for what it's intended for, you really don't have to use too many dongles. So this MacBook, again, we talked about how the processor, when this thing was announced, is a relatively weak processor. If you have a 2011 MacBook Air, the processor in this new MacBook is equivalent to that 2011 MacBook Air. So not a beefy processor. This is not the computer you guys are going to be using to crunch video, even to do a lot of editing on anything. This is Photoshop, what could be a stretch on the new MacBook. This is your browsing, email, listen to music, watch videos online. It is that computer. It is your kind of social connection computer is what I want to call it. But it is not your production computer. It's nothing you're going to use for any heavy lifting. So when people say, okay, when you actually use this for what it's intended for, all I need is a headphone port and power. And really, there's not too much else I can use because everything else you can do wirelessly. You know, you have your Dropbox to sync files. You can AirPlay up to a TV to get your display out. Now, people do say, you will have that one dongle that you need in your life. If you have a USB hard drive, if you have a flash drive that you're constantly plugging in, if maybe you use a USB headset to do any sort of Skyping, a lot of people I know that have this are going to be using it as a Skype machine. They remotely work for work, they work from home, and they do a lot of Skyping or any sort of online meeting, and so they have a USB headset. So some people will need those sort of adapters, but for the most part, when you are just browsing the web and sending email, I don't think you're going to have to carry around as many dongles as you think. And the USB-C comes with a huge advantage, and that is that it's going to be universal. I think USB-C is going to be on nearly all computers in the next few years, and hopefully, and this is the thing where I said they might start moving some of these features over to their iOS platform, I hope that USB-C ends up being the new port on the iPad and the iPhone. I would love to get rid of the Lightning connector. The Lightning connector is fine. It works okay, but it's proprietary, and I can't use it for anything else. If I could have USB-C to charge my phone, my laptop, my iPad, my friend's Android phone, if I could have it just charge everything, that is what we need. I mean, I don't know anyone who wouldn't agree that instead of carrying around, so we made fun of them for carrying around all the dongles and cords, but they really make up for it when if USB-C can be the only cord we need to carry around, now that would be awesome. That is one of the big advantages of USB-C. Now, sadly, there is only one USB-C port. I think it's the Chromebook Pixel that is one of the other devices that has USB-C, and that has two. I could be wrong on which computer that is, but that one has two USB-C ports, and that would make a little bit more sense. I'm imagining a scenario where you need to charge your computer and use a USB headset at the same time. In that case, you would need the special adapter that allows power and USB at the same time. So there are some issues with it. As good as USB-C is, I wish they would have gone with two. But obviously, Apple is known to do things on their devices that everyone wishes for. And Apple knows it. Apple knows that everyone wants two ports on there. And they say they didn't have space for it. And there's a lot of reasons. But they need a reason for you to buy the next generation product. So that might be, I'm not saying Apple's evil. Every company does that. They leave some feature out to keep you waiting for that next generation. So I guarantee I'll put my stamp of approval on it. I will put myself out there and say that the next MacBook that we see from Apple will have two USB-C ports. That's just something I definitely think they need to do. And someone in the chat room was saying that they love that the new MacBook is fanless. And yes, I mean, how fantastic is it that you can have a computer running with no sound whatsoever? Now, this is another reason that you're not going to be able to run a lot of beefy stuff on this computer. They took out the fan. It's a slower processor. There's a reason that they were able to go with no fan. It's because they are running that slower processor, and so they don't need the fan. But so that means, though, you're not going to be able to do as beefy of tasks as you could if you're using a different device. But the new MacBook starts at $1,300. So a lot of people that bought it said it is kind of an expensive browsing machine, but it is a useful one. The battery life is fantastic. You get the USB-C. It's small, lightweight, a perfect travel computer. I see this as being a great computer for a journalist, anyone that has to travel a lot. If you're going in a plane, but you need a full laptop experience, I think the new MacBook makes a lot of sense. I do think the price is a little bit high, but you have to remember, even when the MacBook Air came out, which didn't have a lot of the new innovative features as this one does, that was around the same price. So this is not new for Apple. If you're used to the Apple ecosystem, the price makes a lot of sense. Now, anyone outside the Apple ecosystem is going to say it's a very, very high price for this machine, but that's Apple for you. They charge a premium for what they believe and what I believe to be a premium product and the service you get behind it. Remember that when you're buying an Apple product, you really are paying for the product and then for the amazing service you get when you go to an Apple store and you have to go to the Genius Bar and they need to replace something. They will usually, most of the time, give it to you for free. You get really good service from the Genius Bar. I've never been disappointed with my experience when I have to take a broken computer in or phone in to the Genius Bar. They usually do a great job working with you. All right, so that is the new information on the two new hardware pieces for Apple. So the Apple Watch, the MacBook, we're seeing the MacBook in the wild now. People actually have it. And the Apple Watch we will see here coming up in just a few short days on the 24th, or maybe by the time you're listening to this podcast, maybe it's already out. But what I want to know is if you guys are seeing these in the wild. So if your friends have them, if you have these products, I would love for you guys to send me an email or tweet me a picture of the product and just what you think of it. So if you see someone with the Apple Watch, snap a picture, ask them, hey, can I take a picture of that? And then just give me your impressions. Tweet me at WiegerTech, WIEGER Tech, or email me, mike@wiegertech.com, or you can always post on the Facebook group. I always forget to mention it, but the Facebook group is a fun place where you guys can post all your questions. omnpodcast.com/Facebook group. We'll take you right there, and you guys can sign up to be a part of that community. I love it when you guys ask questions because everyone else is kind of helping out by answering questions, and then I have some questions that I know you guys want answered on the show, which is another reason why I love it. All right, so now we're going to move on from hardware. We're going to software. Now, Apple updated both their iOS platform and their Mac platform. So we saw an update to both, but first we're going to talk about the new update to iOS. iOS 8.3 was released, and it was released with a slew of stability fixes and bug fixes, as well as a few updates to the operating system, but a lot of things they were fixing were issues that they definitely needed to fix. One of the big things that I know two of my friends have dealt with, and they have texted me emailed me, asked me, how do I fix this? And I have not found a solution. Obviously, Apple dealt with that, and that was with iMessage. If you guys were having problems with iMessage groups, you were being kicked out of groups, or your phone was bringing back an old group that you've tried to delete, sometimes your message will not go to your group. It was a very widespread issue, and there was no fix for it. You could turn off and back on iMessage, and that would sometimes fix the issue, but Apple knew about it, and they did address it in 8.3. They also addressed some of the wireless issues that some people were having, and as well as a long list of problems. So, if you have been having problems with your phone and you have not updated, I would definitely update. And Jim actually asked me, he's like, hey, am I good to update right when it comes out? And I said, yes, definitely with 8.3, because 8.3 was an update that was needed. There were a lot of bugs in 8.2, a lot of things that were driving me nuts, other people nuts that were using their devices. But beyond the bug fixes, we did see one of the fun things, a fun little addition, was the diverse emojis. So now when you use your emojis, if you're using any of the people's emoji, you can go in there and you can select different races. So they have different races of the emojis. They now have same-sex couples represented in the family icons. They did a lot of updates to kind of diversify their emojis, which I know made a lot of people happy. And it was a good thing for Apple to do, to really cover the whole sphere of people that you could have in your emojis. So now you can have all sorts of colors of people and hands and everything, and it's fantastic and awesome. So that was one of the fun updates that they had. Now, one of the next updates they did in 8.3 was only noticed by developers because it is a new hook in the code that hints at a new music app for 8.4. So when 8.3 came out, they released the 8.4 beta to developers. So we're already now talking about 8.4 for the update, and it's hinting at a new music app. Now, we haven't seen the app yet, and it's not released to developers, but there are hints that it is going to exist. Now, we don't know if this is going to be in 8.4 or later, and we have no idea what the new music app is. But I think we can all agree that the music app on the iOS devices definitely needs an upgrade. It's something that I don't even use anymore. I have not opened the music app on my phone in, I'd say, about 2 years, because I switched to Spotify after just being frustrated with the syncing issues and how unusable, really, the music app is on the iPhone. You would think that when you're using a music app that there would be some sort of universal search where you could search through your entire music library, and you think when you're using the app, you're like, man, I must just not be finding it. It must be here and I'm not finding it. But no, there is no universal search that is in the music app. Hopefully they bring that back. And people are starting to wonder if the new application is going to be at all linked with Beats. Now, Beats, you guys know, already has their music app out, and when Apple bought Beats, the whole entire rumor was that the new Apple streaming service is going to involve Beats in some way. So my guess is that the music app is going to still be there. I think we'll have that same music app. Maybe it'll get some upgrades, but I think what the new hint is that I think we are going to see a new streaming music service from Apple that is integrated with Beats. And then Beats Music app, if you guys haven't tried it, I think you can still get a free trial when you go in and use the Beats Music app. Give it a try, because I think it's dynamite. You do a sentence is what they started out with. They were kind of if you heard about the sentence in music. So I am partying with friends on the beach, having a good time. You type that sentence in, and Beats just kind of thinks what kind of music you would want to listen to at the time, and it plays music for you. So kind of cool. They have a very good streaming music service, and so I would like to see that integrated. But I think if I'm going to try and make a prediction here, and my predictions have been 50-50. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. So take it with a grain of salt. But I think that we will still have the music app. I think they'll update it. I think they'll add some of the key features in, like universal search. But then I think we will see a new music app from Apple and Beats, kind of a combo deal. No idea what it would be called, but some sort of thing that would do streaming music like that. So that was 8.3. They released it. Again, if you have not got it, go out and get it. Fixed a lot of bug issues, added the diverse emojis, added a few more things. They also added in the Apple Watch settings into the app, which, by the way, a lot of people have at school were actually saying, hey, Apple put this app on my phone for the Apple Watch, and I don't even have an Apple Watch, and I can't take it off. Don't worry, it's not an actual app. It's not taking up space. It's not doing anything like that. It's actually pretty much all it is a link to get to the settings for the Apple Watch. So it's not even really a full-featured app. If you think of an app, it's more of a link to the settings. So it's not taking up any space on your phone. Don't worry about it. But yes, it is kind of annoying that it is just sitting there. I usually just have a folder for all the apps that Apple puts on my phone that I don't use. And I just throw it in there and never have to worry about it again. So, okay, so now that we have talked about iOS 8.3, we are going to move on and talk about the latest update on the Mac side. So if you have a MacBook, MacBook Air, an iMac, a Mac Pro, anything like that, 10.10.3 came out. Now 10.10.3, the biggest update in this update, the biggest thing that they added was the Photos app. Now I talked to you guys about this a few weeks ago because I was in the beta program. So I was actually playing with it's just called Photos. And what their intention is that it is going to replace iPhoto and Aperture. iPhoto and Aperture are still going to be on your machine. So that was one thing I was actually kind of worried about. But when you update to 10.10.3, you will still have iPhoto and Aperture on your computer, but they are no longer developing for those apps. So if you guys are users of iPhoto or Aperture, you can still use it, but just know that they are no longer developing for it, and there will be no more updates. So they kind of want people to move over to Photos. And so I'm going to focus a little bit on Photos because the Photos application is extremely interesting. A lot of people were wondering how fully advanced is Photos going to be? Is it going to be a decent iPhoto replacement? Is it going to be at all an Aperture replacement? And iPhotos, I think, falls right in the middle of iPhoto and Aperture. It's not going to have a lot of the advanced features that Aperture has. But when you think about Apple, they're focusing on a lot of different things. And so Apple has always tried to pare down and play to the majority. And the majority of people that have Photos have compiled these photos from years. They have them on their iPhone. They've taken photos, and all they want is an app to put these in and have some sort of organization and do basic editing, red eye removal, touch up some things here, change a little bit of the color, something like that. People, that's all they need, a way to organize their photos and do simple edits. And for the majority, that is what the customers want from their Apple products. And Apple always plays in the majority. Now, obviously, you're going to get the fish shake from the pro users, the same fish shake that was given when Apple really dumbed down Final Cut. Apple took a big ding on Final Cut. They took out a lot of the big features, and a lot of the pro consumers were extremely upset with Apple. Now, Apple has added in some of those features back, but I think it's a little bit too late. For most of the pro video creators, a lot of them switched to the Adobe products or something comparable to that. But we are seeing that again with Photos from Aperture. So if you are a pro user, you probably are shaking your fist a little bit angry at Apple. But you got to remember that they are going for the majority. Now, I'm glad the way they made the switch, the way the update works is actually pretty convenient. I'm going to walk you guys through when you update how the whole update thing is going to work when you go from iPhoto and Aperture to the new Photos app, and the one problem I encountered when I made the switch. So if you have your iPhoto library, so let's say, I'm just going to focus on iPhoto, but it's the same exact thing for Aperture. So just whether I'm saying Aperture or iPhoto, it's going to be the same exact effect if you use either app. So if you had your iPhoto library stored locally on your hard drive that you boot from, the process is going to be pretty simple. Now, the one problem I ran into is that I actually keep my iPhoto library on an external hard drive that is plugged into my network. So my computer reaches my iPhoto library externally because my photos takes up so much space that I do not have room on my internal hard drive for that. So that caused a little bit of an issue, but we'll talk about that in a second. When you launch the Photos app for the first time, it will ask you if you want to import from iPhoto or Aperture. Now, really, the import feature is not copying over, it's not converting your iPhoto or Aperture library. What it's doing is it's pretty much looking at the file that iPhoto says, hey, I have photos here, and it's making a hard link to that photo, which means it's not going to take up double the space. So don't worry about if it's not going to copy the file. It's just going to create a hard link to that photo, but it leaves your iPhoto library alone. So you'll be able to access all of the photos that you previously had in iPhoto, and you'll be able to edit them and do everything in Photos, but now those will be completely separate from your iPhoto photo. So once you make that initial kind of, I'm going to call it an import, because you are importing these photos into Photos app, but they are staying in that same iPhoto library, and those will not be touched. So you do the initial import. So you have photos and you have all of your old iPhoto photos in the Photos app, but it did not copy, it did not take up extra space on your hard drive, which I thought was a very smart move by Apple. But once you make this initial switch, you now have a Photos library and an iPhotos library, and they don't connect. So if you make an edit in Photos, when you open up iPhoto, that photo will be the same as the last time you open up iPhoto. It will not reflect the changes, which I think is the way they needed to do this. If they wanted people to try out Photos and get into it, you needed to be able to access your photos, but not worrying about destroying any of your old library that you either had in Aperture or iPhoto. So I was very excited about this. I thought that was a good thing. I have thousands and thousands of photos in my iPhoto, and I was worried when I made the switch to Photos that it was going to mess something up. It was going to double the space. I was going to be down an extra 20 gigs of hard drive space. So the way they made the switch was actually pretty clever and a pretty good move on Apple's part. But I was trying to what I remembered when I put down network libraries for. But if you do have your library on a network, in order to import it, at least right now, at least all I could find was you will need to put that back on your internal drive, at least in order to copy it over for Photos. I don't know how that's going to work though, so I have not done too much research into it. All I know is that since my library is stored on an external network drive, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the import into the Photos app. So that is really the biggest update with 10.3. Again, it was a lot of bug fixes and improvements, and there's an entire list of those. When you do the update, you can see the entire list of updates, bug fixes, everything like that 10.10.3 did. But as far as users go, the biggest thing you're going to notice is the addition of that Photos app down in your dock. But don't be afraid to use it, play with it, and see how powerful it is. I think it's a little more powerful than iPhoto, but definitely it's not an Aperture replacement. But luckily, they let you keep those two apps on your computer. You can still use them, which is great. So now I have a tip and trick for you. So that is it for the news. That's all the Apple news. We played catch up. We got you all caught up with the latest Apple news. We're all good now. You guys are all filled in. Don't worry. And but now I'm going to cover a tip and a trick, and then I have one more final thing I wanted to mention, which I just thought was kind of cool. So now with QuickTime, and this has been around apparently for the last few months, but I had not noticed it, and I wondered if my listeners had as well. If you guys do any sort of tutorials, if you make any videos for iOS, so let's say you make iPhone tutorials, or you make iPad tutorials, or maybe for some reason you have just always wanted to capture what's going on your screen, save it, or send it to someone. For some reason you want to make a video about what's going on your phone. In the past, we've had workarounds, and I still use those workarounds. There's an app called Reflector that you can get for your computer, and it acts as an AirPlay receiver, so you can AirPlay your phone to your computer and record your screen. There's different ways to do that, but what I did not notice is if you take your Apple cord, your Apple charging cord, plug your phone into your computer, and you open up QuickTime, you are actually able to record screen grabs from your phone via QuickTime. So one little pro tip there, all you do is plug it in, make sure it's an Apple branded cord, that is important, and then run your QuickTime and you guys can record your screen capture video or photos from your iOS device. Something that was not possible before and extremely difficult, and Apple went in and made it easy. So that's one little tip, trick I had for you guys. One fun piece of news that I wanted to mention, not Apple related, but, you guys know I'm into business and law and all that stuff. The CEO of GoPro, and the reason I bring this up is because I talk about this bad boy all the time, right? I've told you guys how awesome the GoPro is for travel, for everything, and how well it connects to your iOS devices with the iOS GoPro app. Love it. It's super convenient, super awesome. The new CEO of GoPro is now the highest paid executive in the United States, coming in at around $240 million. Now, of course, that's going to be paid out not right away. It's in stock and certain different options. But at $240 million, he is the highest paid executive in the United States. And the funny thing about the CEO of GoPro, he was a surfer. He used to be a surfer, and he wanted a camera that he could take with him while he was surfing and capture video and photo. And who would know that he would run a multi-billion-dollar company? GoPro is now the face of extreme sports and video capture and photos for doing anything outdoors. I mean, they're a lot more versatile than that, but that's what they are known for, and they are a multi-billion-dollar company now, and now he's the highest-paid CEO. So it shows you that, you could be a surfer and end up being a billionaire just by creating something as simple as the GoPro. But yeah, awesome. I still love these things. So that is the one fun piece of news I wanted to give you guys. If you guys want to support the show as we bring this in for a close, if you guys want to support the show, if you guys shop on Amazon at all, which, I think a lot of you do. If you watch this show, you probably shop on Amazon at no extra cost to you. If you just go to omnpodcast.com/Amazon, it'll redirect you right to Amazon. You won't even notice anything. You'll be on Amazon. And anything you buy after you have followed that link a small portion of that will go to Uyghur Tech. It'll go to the Uyghur Tech Scholarship Fund, and all of that supports the technology and everything that goes into this show, which is awesome. So again, it doesn't cost you anything. The app Amazon just kind of gives you a little bit for having referred people to Amazon. So omnpodcast.com/Amazon. The best thing to do, just save that as your bookmark. So just go to make a new bookmark and type omnpodcast.com/Amazon in. And then every time you want to go to Amazon, just click that link and they'll take you right there. You don't have to worry about it. That is what I do for one of the fellow guys that I shop through. So if you want to support the show, the Amazon link is awesome, and I truly appreciate it. If you guys want to write an iTunes review, omnpodcast.com/iTunes. You guys can go in there and write a review. I really appreciate it. We have a few, and we actually got a new one in the past few weeks. So thank you to whoever wrote that. It was a very long, I would have read it on air, but it was a very long chain of random letters. So, but they wrote a really nice review. So I was excited. Thank you for writing those reviews. I look forward to bringing Colin on. If you guys weren't here at the beginning, we are looking to bring on a co-host. And so Colin is going to be joining me on a semi-regular basis. And that is going to be, something that we start, I want to say middle of May is probably when we're going to start it. Because like I said, there's no show on May 5th. So maybe that next week we'll start to bring Colin on. He's excited to be a semi to regular co-host. Whenever he can't be on, it's not going to be a big deal, but I will look forward to having a second co-host on the show. I think it'll offer you guys a much broader sense of everything I talk about. We'll still be covering all Apple. The shift is not going to, or the topics are not going to shift. Nothing's going to change with the topics, but having two people is always better than one. And I know you guys would like to hear a break from my voice and hear someone else's. So that is the fun news from today. That is all the Apple news. You are all caught up. Congratulations. You know all the latest Apple news. But we will be back next week, again, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, and 5 p.m. Pacific. I hope you guys come out, omnpodcast.com/live. The chat room tonight was amazing, by the way. So you guys in the chat room are awesome. It was scrolling fast, and I couldn't even read it as fast as I wanted to. So I'll be in the chat room after the show. So if you're there, and if I didn't answer your question and you had a question, I'll be in the chat room after the show. But for those of you guys who didn't listen live, come out and join live next week, Tuesday nights. And so that is going to do it for the show. You guys have a great week, but until I see you guys next time, tech on.